Welcome everyone to the Wake Up Call channel. One of the things in the future that we're all going to have to be aware of, and I try to make people aware of it, is the use of direct energy weapons. Of course, as we've seen in places like Lahaina and Texas and Chile, under the guise of telling everybody out there that it's climate change, that these are wildfires. There are ways to protect yourselves from direct energy weapons. And I know a YouTuber sounded a lot like me, who had a video out there that was scrubbed off the internet. And people have asked me where they could find that information, so I'm going to put the information up here. Now, one of the psychological operations that's out there regarding the use of direct energy weapons, because the government knows that there's people who are becoming very aware of these direct energy weapons, is the blue roof theory. The blue roof theory is something that they've allowed to circulate all over the internet. Even after Texas, everybody was talking about, hey, all you got to do is get a blue roof and then you won't get hit with these things. And that's exactly what they want you to think, that if you paint your roof blue, that suddenly the government will not be able to hit you with a direct energy weapon. And it couldn't be further from the truth. However, there are ways you can shield yourself from a direct energy weapon using things like metamaterials. So let me start with this clip. You might remember this clip. This went viral after everything that happened in Maui because so many video clips came out of people's homes who actually survived, or umbrellas that survived the Maui attack, which is what it really was, that had blue roofs. So blue umbrellas survived. And everybody said, look, they're just targeting anything that's not blue. But the simple fact is they're using electromagnetic frequencies. They're using wavelengths. They could program this however they want. So what you really need is metamaterials. But this is a clip that went viral that made everybody think that all the homes need are a blue roof and then they won't get hit with a direct energy weapon.
Laser weapons can be programmed for different wavelengths. There was something blue they didn't want to burn.
So one of the things that people need to realize is that broadband metamaterial is used for shielding and counteracting direct energy weapons. So civilians like me and you need to keep that in our mind. Now, I posted this video and I will share it right now. I won't even ramble on and on until after the video because a lot of people wanted to see this clip again from the Naval Postgraduate School where they talk about metamaterials and how they can absorb direct energy weapons, and it could be something used by the military to counteract. Now, of course, we know this is what they have, but this is what civilians need to have. This has nothing to do with the colors per se, but it has to do with the material. So here's the video clip a lot of you have requested. Enjoy.
So then here's the overview. So I'll kind of do a little introductory stuff up front to give everyone a frame of reference. But then most of the focus here will be on the parameter extraction and equivalent medium parameter retrieval for the metamaterials, which will hopefully help us streamline our kind of design of metamaterials. But then most of the focus here will be on the parameter extraction and equivalent medium parameter retrieval for the metamaterials, which will hopefully help us streamline our kind of design of metamaterials. And then last will be on future work and basically all the stuff I'm going to pawn off on Lieutenant Ed Wolf. So high-power microwave weapons. The weapons themselves kind of went beyond the scope and classification level of my thesis. However, I just wanted to introduce them real fast so that everyone kind of knows what the threat is and what it is we're designing metamaterials to shield against. So high-power microwave weapon is basically a weapon that uses a very high-gain microwave source at a very high peak power over a very short dwell time. And the idea is that it's trying to induce a very large electric field at a target so that you produce some overload in their circuitry and disable their electronics. And so depending on your target, the effects can be variable. If you're talking about a vehicle, like a ground vehicle, you might merely stop it or shut it down. And then if you're talking about something that flies like a missile or an aircraft, the goal would be to knock out something like their flight control system so that it goes plummeting to the ground. So kind of ranging from soft kill to hard kill, depending on what you're trying to do. And then a lot of nations around the world are researching these weapons because they have a lot of advantages relative to other directed energy weapons like lasers or particle beams. The first one is because you're doing high peak powers over short dwells, you get a relatively low energy waveform. So while these high power microwave weapons can still have pretty big size and weight, their power and cooling requirements can be lower compared to other systems, in particular like the particle beams. The other nice thing about them is that they're highly adaptable to your target set. When you're talking about lasers, you tend to get one frequency to use, and if the enemy figures out a way to either reflect or disperse that frequency, then your laser becomes a lot less effective. But with microwaves, if you happen to know that your target set, if your enemy uses missiles with seekers in the X-band or drones with communications in the K-band, you can build a high-power microwave system that specifically attacks that bandwidth, and then it's very hard to defend against. And then the last big advantage, you just heard from Donnie about how atmospheric turbulence affects lasers, and then particle beams are also almost impossible to get through an atmosphere. Microwaves don't have that problem. They propagate readily through the atmosphere, which is why we use them for sensing and communication and all that stuff. So this chart just kind of shows where these high-power microwave weapons live relative to more traditional systems like radars or jammers. And so your ideal high-power microwave weapon would be in this bottom right corner here, where you're talking about something on the order of gigawatts of peak power being produced by less than a kilowatt of average power. And then this down here is just a picture of a typical high-power microwave weapon system that someone was working on somewhere in the world sometime in the last decade. And so you have the big high-gain microwave dish on top, then presumably all the transmitters, signal processors, cooling, all that is hidden in the truck bed. So then our candidate shielding for stopping these microwave weapons is our microwave absorbent metamaterials. And so first advantage of the metamaterials is that they can have a very high levels of absorption, and they're very tunable to the frequency you want to absorb. So here's a sample metamaterial structure, very similar to the terahertz metamaterials, just scaled up in size. So you have conductive metal squares that are periodically, also that we call unit cells, that are patterned over this dielectric spacer. And then that in turn is mounted on a metal ground plane. And so then you can choose the frequency that you absorb based on the width of the squares and the index of refraction of the dielectric medium. Now, in terms of protection, what really gives you the protection against microwaves specifically is having this conductive ground plane, because microwaves don't want to transmit across a ground plane. So you could say in theory that you don't have to go for an absorbent design, you could just coat everything in conductive material. However, we're going for an absorbent solution because if you clad everything in conductive material, you're going to light up like a Christmas tree on all those microwave radars. So in the interest of preserving all the signature reduction of platforms we've invested in, we want an absorbent design. The other advantage, which I'll talk about more during future work, is that once you have this absorption and these tuned frequencies, you can actually also use your shielding for sensing as well, once you incorporate the right electronics into the design. So your shielding can give you not only protection, but situational awareness as well. So this here is a very simple single band design. The idea then would be to try to get a broadband or multi-band design where you can actually laminate multiple resonator squares on top of each other, all separated by dielectric, which is kind of what we have down here. So here's a simulated mock-up of a kind of pyramid structure. This particular design that I tested had 6 resonator layers, so it can absorb 6 frequencies. Here's just a SEM micrograph kind of showing the edge of the unit cell. See, it's a little fuzzy, but you got the metal plates in there, all separated and mounted in dielectric with a ground plane at the bottom. So this design, there's some plates going around. So this is basically the unit cell of that array plate that's being passed around. And then this is just some crude experimental data with a crude model. But all I want to point out here is that with our 6 layers, we can see that we have 6 very predictable absorption peaks that we can tune towards.
So again, when we talk about direct energy weapons, that's the future. That's the future for a lot of us, that how we're going to be targeted by our own government, right? They could do these types of things. They can get away with these types of things and say that they're just wildfires. They could potentially blame it on other countries. They could do whatever they really want as far as the narrative goes, because the sheeple will believe it. But it's very clear that our governments have gone rogue. They've gone rogue for a long time, but they have completely turned on their civilians, and they will do whatever they can to take out anyone who doesn't go along with this disgusting New World Order. Again, we have Democrats who are on board with this New World Order, who think it's great, it's inclusive. A lot of them have just sold themselves. They have no moral compass whatsoever. These people that are on board with the castration of children, all this type of psychopathic stuff. They're literally building a herd and an army, I should say, of psychopaths. And then you have people like me and you. People like me and you who continue to fight back, continue to speak out, continue no matter what is done to use the one tool that we have, the one weapon that we have, our voice, right? Our sword, that is scripture, that is truth, right? My people perish for a lack of knowledge, the Bible tells us. Well, we have to make sure everybody out there knows who's behind a lot of these things that are going on and how we can protect ourselves from it. So that video clip you heard there was talking about metamaterial, right? Some metamaterials actually, ironically, right, that are examples of metamaterials are things like graphene, refractive index. There's tons of things out there that you could research as far as metamaterials go. But here's just an article too, analysis of broadband metamaterial shielding for counter-direct energy weapons. Back from 2020, that was part of the video clip that I showed you there. Electromagnetic metamaterials are being developed and employed in a variety of applications such as sensing, imaging, and optics, and signature reduction and cloaking. One application of particular interest to the military is the need for electromagnetic protection to defend battlefield electronics against high-power microwaves, direct energy weapons currently under development worldwide. Now, you could also look at this as far as shielding to protect yourselves from other types of microwave weapons. We know, especially people out there who are targeted individuals, I know over the years, many people who are targeted individuals have found my channel, found comfort in my channel as targeted individuals. I've talked to a lot of people in the past through email and stuff like that who have been victims of satanic ritual abuse and continue to be targeted individuals. Everybody out there should know that the government uses high power microwaves, not just in those big towers that have popped up all around us, okay? They are able to do this and target specific people. So there are ways you can protect yourself from frequencies. Think about it from the standpoint of, well, if the military has these types of weapons, they're obviously going to have ways to shield themselves from these types of weapons. What we need to think about is how to shield ourselves from a lot of these frequencies that are being used against us, how to counteract microwave direct energy weapons, right? HPMs and DEWs and things along those lines. So if we all just kind of, if it's very easy. Like I saw after the stuff in Maui, and I covered the stuff in Maui. It's all on the website, obviously. I covered that right when it happened. It was very clear what it was, right? We talked about how they even had that drill at the same exact time, which they do every time they have a drill. Everybody's off the island. No alarms went off. All the leaders on the island were on another island. They were talking about the same exact thing. What if that happened on our island? And then it, of course, happened, right? But one of the big narratives that did help wake people up was seeing the blue roofs. However, the government started to take that and run with it. We saw it even in Texas. There was people who were just watching the stuff that was coming out and searching specifically for anything blue that survived. That's what the government wants you to think, that, hey, you could just go up, go to Home Depot, go to get some Behr paint, get some blue paint, go up, sit on your roof all day, slab it on, and then there's no potential for you to get hit. And that's not the truth. They could change the colors, they could change the frequencies, they could do all these things. It's not, the weapon they have, it's not like they made it and they were like, we can't hit blue. Can't hit blue. Blue's the only color that's safe. They could obviously change it, turn it, manipulate it. They could target specific colors based on wavelengths like red or purple or whatever else they want. So that you could paint your roof blue, in other words, and yes, they could have it so that when the direct energy weapon hits, that it doesn't hit blue. But then they could tell you all, to go and get blue roofs and then say, hey, target only blue roofs and have red roofs survive. So what people need to focus on if they want to protect themselves in the future. And I'm not telling you to run to Home Depot and get these types of metamaterials, but they are something that can absorb frequency. So I covered this months ago, and a lot of people out there wanted me to cover it again. So I put it back out there for you to see. I'm sure we'll be hearing more of these in the summer, because remember, when it gets hot like this, it gives them ample opportunity to use direct energy weapons all over the place, like they're doing right now in California, like we continue to see in Canada. And they tell everybody out there it's so hot. And then everybody goes, oh, it's so hot. That's why, cities are melting. I mean, you look at what's going on in some of these places, and, it's not even like a fire. It's just like a liquidation of a lot of these places. You see cars melted down, all the way to just liquid metal. It's insane. The amount of heat that would have to be conducted is clearly from direct energy weapons. So this is a video clip I wanted to put out there for everyone to see. I hope everybody out there is doing well. I thank you guys for the support. God bless all of you, as always, and your families.